Right, Reed, this judge made quite the scene yesterday in federal court here in the nation's capital, singling out not just the government's takeover of the city, but the way that federal prosecutors, in turn, after people have been arrested for, in this case specifically, it was a threat against the president. Well, that charge was later dropped because federal prosecutors did not have substantive enough evidence. This judge and even this person's defense attorney said it was right before the hearing. The Department of Justice said that they were no longer going to bring this case. But this person had been held in federal prison for 6 days before this hearing was even held. This has happened in numerous cases, and this judge said that the Department of Justice and Trump administration are going around the city playing cops and robbers. They're looking to rush these numbers and rush these cases to put things out on Twitter and Truth Social and press releases, and also singled out what they basically see as a distrust in policing in this city, that in which people are just being arrested first before actually having questions asked of them or charges are being brought. It fits a larger pattern that we've talked about, Reed, over the last couple of weeks and months.
All right. So here's what nobody's talking about. While DC is literally shut down right now, while federal workers are missing paychecks and the government can't even keep the lights on, Donald Trump just demanded that the Department of Justice, the same DOJ that investigated him, pay him $230 million. Yeah, you heard that right. $230 million of your money, taxpayer money, and he's calling it compensation for what he claims was malicious prosecution. Now, if you're sitting there thinking this sounds insane, you're not alone, because this isn't just about money. This is about something way bigger. This is about a sitting president trying to shake down the very agency that's supposed to hold powerful people accountable. And the timing is just chef's kiss level of chaos. Because while Trump's demanding this massive payout, the government's in shutdown mode. Federal employees aren't getting paid. Services are being cut. And Trump's over here like, hey, where's my $230 million? Come on, can you believe this? But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
As grand juries in the city, our peers here in Washington, D.C. have decided to not indict in a number of these high-profile cases on federal charges. Instead, the Department of Justice has had to move to charge people with simply just misdemeanors, which the police department here in D.C. could do without the federal law enforcement here. Now judges are starting to pick up on it, warning that this just cannot continue at this rate without potentially causing a potential constitutional crisis and threatening at least the democracy and the way it works here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, pick up on it and pick on it, as you say. Jake, we're also hearing reports that the Justice Department is weighing banning transgender Americans from owning.
Here's the thing, and this is where it gets wild. Former DOJ officials are losing their minds over this. One called it, and I quote, a blatant shakedown. Another said it's unprecedented and disgusting. And they're not wrong, because when you look at the history of DOJ settlements, the biggest payout they've ever made was $88 million. That was for the Dylann Roof case, where the FBI literally failed to stop a mass shooter because of background check errors. 9 people died in that church shooting. The families got $88 million. Tragic, but at least that made sense, right? Now Trump wants $230 million. For what exactly? For being investigated? For having his house searched when classified documents turned up? For the Russia probe that revealed his campaign had over 100 contacts with Russian officials? Like, this is wild. This is absolutely wild. And then, here's where it gets even more chaotic. The demand comes right as reports are exploding about Trump using the DOJ to go after his political enemies. We're talking about critics, journalists, former officials who dared to speak out against him. The same DOJ he now wants money from. He's also weaponizing against anyone who crosses him. So he's simultaneously saying the DOJ wronged him while also using it as his personal revenge machine. Make it make sense. You can't, because it doesn't. Social media went absolutely nuclear over the last 48 hours. Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it now, erupted. People are furious. And it's not just Democrats. Plenty of Republicans are quietly shaking their heads at this one. Because even if you're a Trump supporter, even if you think he got a raw deal with the investigations, demanding $250 million while the government's shut down, that's a bad look. That's a really bad look. Here's what a lot of people don't realize, and this is important. This isn't just about Trump trying to get paid. This is about setting a precedent. If a president can demand hundreds of millions from the DOJ for being investigated, what does that do to future investigations? What does that do to accountability? Because here's the thing, presidents aren't supposed to be above the law. That's literally the whole point of our system. But if you can just sue the DOJ every time they look into your conduct and demand massive payouts, then what's stopping the next president from doing the same thing? And the next one? And the next one? This is a slippery slope, and we're already sliding. Former DOJ officials are calling this what it is, obstruction of justice. Because think about it, if the department knows that investigating a president could cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, are they going to be as willing to do their job? Are they going to think twice before opening cases? That's the chilling effect Trump's going for here. That's the whole game. And listen, I know some of you are probably thinking, well, maybe he does deserve something if the investigations were bogus. But here's the problem with that argument. The investigations weren't bogus. The Russia probe led to multiple convictions. Paul Manafort, Trump's campaign chairman, convicted. Michael Flynn, his national security advisor, pleaded guilty. Roger Stone, convicted. Michael Cohen, convicted. The list goes on. In the classified documents case, they found classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. That's not made up. That's not a witch hunt. That happened. So now we've got a president demanding a massive payout while simultaneously claiming victimhood, while also using the same department to go after his critics, while the government shut down, while federal workers aren't getting paid. It's chaos, pure chaos. And we're supposed to just, act like this is normal? Act like this is fine? It's not fine. None of this is fine. Okay, so let's dig into what's actually happening here, because the surface level stuff is wild enough, but when you get into the details, oh man, it gets so much worse. Trump's demand for $230 million is specifically related to two things: the Russia investigation that dominated his first term, and the classified documents case that led to the FBI searching Mar-a-Lago. Now, his argument is that these were examples of malicious prosecution, that the DOJ went after him for political reasons, that it was all a witch hunt designed to take him down. And look, I get it. That's been his narrative for years. He's been screaming about witch hunts and deep state conspiracies since day one. But here's where the argument falls apart, and this is crucial. Malicious prosecution has a very specific legal definition. It means prosecution without probable cause, prosecution done with malice, prosecution that's fundamentally unjust. And when you actually look at what happened, neither of these cases fits that definition, at all. The Russia investigation, that started because George Papadopoulos, a Trump campaign advisor, got drunk in a bar in London and told an Australian diplomat that Russia had dirt on Hillary Clinton. The diplomat reported it. The FBI opened an investigation. That's not malicious. That's literally their job. And yeah, the investigation didn't result in Trump being charged with conspiracy, but it did uncover massive amounts of contact between the Trump campaign and Russian officials. It led to multiple convictions. It wasn't nothing. In the classified documents case, come on, they found boxes of classified materials at Mar-a-Lago, documents marked top secret, documents about nuclear capabilities, documents about military plans, and when the National Archives asked for them back, Trump's team said they returned everything, but they hadn't. So the FBI got a warrant, searched the property, and found more classified documents. That's not a witch hunt. That's law enforcement doing what they're supposed to do when someone has unauthorized possession of classified materials. But Trump's sitting here acting like he's the victim of some grand conspiracy, and he wants you, the taxpayer, to pay him for it. $230 million. Now, let's talk about that number for a second, because it's not random. Trump's team clearly looked at previous DOJ settlements and said, okay, what's the biggest payout we can ask for that doesn't sound completely insane? And they landed on $230 million. But here's the thing, and this is what former DOJ officials keep pointing out. There's no precedent for this. None. Zero. The biggest settlement in DOJ history was $88 million for the Dahlan roof case, and that was for catastrophic failure, for a system breakdown that directly led to 9 deaths. The FBI literally failed to flag Roof's criminal record during a background check, which allowed him to buy the gun he used to murder 9 people in a church. The families of those victims got $88 million, and even that settlement was considered massive, unprecedented in its own right. So Trump's asking for more than double that amount. For what? For being investigated? For having to deal with legal proceedings? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And then, yeah, there's the timing. Oh, the timing. Because while Trump's making this demand, DC is in full-blown shutdown mode. The government ran out of funding. Congress couldn't pass a budget. Federal workers are furloughed. National parks are closed. Services are being cut. And Trump's solution to all of this chaos? Demand $250 million from the DOJ? Can you believe this? Seriously, can you believe this? Former officials at the DOJ are not holding back. One called it a blatant shakedown, which, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Another said it's unprecedented and disgusting. And when you consider the context, when you think about federal workers missing paychecks while Trump demands this massive payout, disgusting is the right word. It's shameless, it's obscene. But here's where it gets even more twisted. And this is the part that should really worry everyone. Trump's not just demanding money from the DOJ, he's also using the DOJ to go after his enemies. Reports came out over the last few weeks about the department targeting Trump critics, journalists who wrote unfavorable stories, former officials who testified against him, political opponents who dared to challenge him. The DOJ, under Trump's control, is being weaponized. So let's get this straight. Trump is saying the DOJ wronged him, that they prosecuted him maliciously, that they owe him hundreds of millions of dollars. But at the same time, he's using that same department as his personal revenge tool. He's sending them after people who criticize him. He's turning the DOJ into his own private enforcement arm. This is textbook obstruction of justice. Because what Trump's doing here is creating a system where the DOJ can't function independently. If they investigate him, he demands massive payouts. If they don't go after his enemies, he probably fires them. It's a lose-lose situation for anyone trying to do their job with integrity. And the precedent this sets, it's terrifying. Because imagine if every president did this. Imagine if Obama had sued the DOJ for investigating his administration. Imagine if Bush had demanded money for any inquiry into his conduct. The whole system would collapse. There'd be no accountability. Presidents would be untouchable. That's what Trump wants. He wants to be untouchable. Now, polls are showing that a lot of Americans already believe federal law enforcement is weaponized. And Trump's playing right into that narrative. He's saying, look, they came after me. They're corrupt. They owe me money. And some people buy it. Some people hear that and think, yeah, he's right. The system's rigged. But what they're missing is that Trump's the one doing the rigging. He's the one weaponizing the DOJ. He's the one creating chaos and then pointing fingers at everyone else. It's classic misdirection, classic gaslighting. And it's working, at least with his base. But for the rest of us, for people paying attention, this is a nightmare scenario because we're watching a president systematically dismantle the checks and balances that are supposed to keep him in line. We're watching him demand money from the agency that investigated him while using that same agency to punish his critics, while the government shuts down, while federal workers suffer. And the worst part, there's no sign it's going to stop. Trump's making it clear that this is how he governs. Chaos, retribution, shakedowns, all wrapped up in claims of victimhood. He's not trying to unite the country. He's not trying to solve problems. He's trying to settle scores and enrich himself in the process. $230 million from the DOJ while the government shut down. This is wild. This is absolutely wild. And here's another thing that's getting lost in all of this. The people who are actually hurt by this aren't Trump, aren't politicians, aren't the wealthy and powerful. It's regular federal workers. It's park rangers who can't do their jobs. It's TSA agents working without pay. It's families who depend on government services that are now suspended. Those are the real victims here. And Trump doesn't care about any of them. He's too busy trying to extract a massive settlement for himself. The disconnect is staggering. The selfishness is off the charts. And somehow, his supporters are cheering this on. They're acting like this is Trump fighting the system, like he's standing up for the little guy. But he's not standing up for anyone except himself. He's shaking down the government while it's in crisis. He's demanding money while people suffer. Are you kidding me? This is wild. Alright, so let's break this down into what actually matters here, because there's a lot of noise around this story. But when you cut through all of it, there are really three core things you need to understand. First, Trump's demand for $230 million is unprecedented, and it sets a dangerous precedent for presidential accountability. Like, forget about whether you think Trump was treated fairly or not. Just focus on what this means for the future. If a president can sue the DOJ for investigating them and demand massive settlements, then what stops future presidents from doing the same thing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's the point. Trump's not just trying to get paid here. He's trying to create a system where presidents can't be investigated without massive financial consequences for the government. He's trying to make the DOJ think twice before opening cases against powerful people. And if that works, if he actually gets this money, then we've basically said that presidents are above the law, that they can do whatever they want without fear of real consequences. That's not democracy. That's not how this is supposed to work. Second, the timing of this demand, right in the middle of a government shutdown, shows just how little Trump cares about regular people. Federal workers are missing paychecks. Families are struggling. Services are being cut. And Trump's response is to demand $250 million for himself. Not for those workers. Not to help end the shutdown. For himself. And yeah, His supporters will say he deserves it, that he was wronged, that the investigations were unfair. But even if you believe all of that, even if you think Trump got a raw deal, the timing is still obscene. You don't demand hundreds of millions of dollars while the government's in crisis. You just don't. Unless, of course, you only care about yourself. Unless you see the presidency as a way to enrich yourself and settle personal scores, which, let's be honest, is exactly what Trump sees it as. Third, and this is maybe the most important point, Trump is simultaneously claiming the DOJ wronged him while also weaponizing that same department against his critics. Think about how insane that is. He's saying the DOJ is corrupt, that they prosecuted him maliciously, that they can't be trusted, but he's also using them to go after journalists, former officials, political opponents, anyone who crosses him. So which is it? Is the DOJ corrupt, or is it a useful tool for revenge? Trump wants it both ways. He wants to claim victimhood while also playing the strongman. He wants to sue the department while also controlling it. And the result is just chaos. Pure chaos. Former DOJ officials are calling this obstruction of justice, and they're right, because what Trump's doing is making it impossible for the department to function independently. He's creating an environment where investigators have to worry about political blowback, where they have to think about whether opening a case will result in the president demanding hundreds of millions of dollars. That's not how justice is supposed to work. Justice is supposed to be blind, supposed to be independent, supposed to hold everyone accountable, regardless of power or position. But under Trump, justice is just another tool for personal gain and political revenge. Now let's talk about what comes next, because this story's not over. Trump made the demand, but the DOJ hasn't responded yet. They're probably trying to figure out how to even handle this, because it's so unprecedented that there's no playbook for it. Do they fight it in court? Do they try to negotiate? Do they just ignore it and hope it goes away? Whatever they do, it's going to be a mess. Because if they fight it, Trump will scream about how corrupt they are, how they're refusing to compensate him for their wrongdoing. And if they pay him even a fraction of what he's asking for, then they're setting a precedent that every future president will exploit. It's lose, lose. And in the meantime, the government's still shut down. Federal workers are still missing paychecks. The chaos continues because that's how Trump operates. He creates crisis after crisis, keeps everyone spinning, and then uses the confusion to push through whatever he wants. It's exhausting, it's destabilizing, and it's deliberate. Here's the thing that a lot of people miss. Trump doesn't want a functioning government. He wants chaos, because chaos benefits him. When everything's on fire, when everyone's confused and angry, he can do whatever he wants without real scrutiny. He can demand massive payouts. He can weaponize federal agencies. He can settle scores. And by the time people figure out what happened, he's already moved on to the next crisis. It's a strategy, and it works. But it's destroying our institutions in the process. The DOJ is supposed to be independent. The presidency is supposed to have checks and balances. Federal workers are supposed to get paid for their work. None of that's happening right now, and Trump doesn't care because he's got his eyes on that $230 million, on getting revenge against his enemies, on proving that he's untouchable. So where does this leave us? Well, it leaves us with the president who's demanding a massive payout from the agency that investigated him, while using that same agency to punish his critics, while the government shut down, while federal workers aren't getting paid. It leaves us with a system that's breaking down in real time, with institutions that are being hollowed out, with precedents that are being shattered. And the worst part, Trump's base loves it. They see this as him fighting back against the deep state, as him standing up for himself, as him being strong. They don't see the obstruction. They don't see the chaos. They just see their guy refusing to back down. But for the rest of us, for people who care about democracy, about accountability, about having a government that actually functions, this is a nightmare. This is everything we were worried about when Trump got reelected. And it's only going to get worse from here. Because if Trump gets away with this, if he actually gets that money, or even if he just succeeds in intimidating the DOJ, then there's no limit to what he'll try next. The presidency will become a tool for personal enrichment and political revenge. The rule of law will be a joke, and our democracy will be, pretty much done. So that's where we are. $230 million, a government shutdown, a weaponized DOJ, and a president who sees all of it as just another opportunity to settle scores and line his pockets. Can you believe this? Can you actually believe this is where we are right now? Because I can barely wrap my head around it. And something tells me this is just the beginning. Trump's testing the limits, seeing what he can get away with, and so far he's getting away with everything. The legal experts are sounding alarms. Constitutional scholars are writing op-eds about the erosion of democratic norms. Former government officials are speaking out, warning that we're in dangerous territory. But none of it seems to matter. Trump keeps pushing, keeps demanding, keeps weaponizing, and the system just absorbs it, normalizes it, moves on to the next outrage. And that's the scariest part. Not that Trump's doing this, but that we're becoming numb to it. That this level of corruption and chaos is starting to feel normal. That we're losing our ability to be shocked. We can't let that happen. We have to keep paying attention. We have to keep calling this out for what it is. A president shaking down the government, obstructing justice, weaponizing federal agencies, all while people suffer. Stay tuned, because this story is going to keep developing, and it's only going to get crazier from here. Trump's shown us who he is. Now we have to decide what we're going to do about it.